Hey everyone, I'm back again with another video. This is going to be my week 1 update based on my League Starter Bleed Gladiator video. As I said, I'll be doing a couple of videos here and there to kind of update my experience with the League Starter and the League itself, as well as to kind of keep the content flowing. I know this stuff isn't many people's cup of tea. I mean, most people are either interested in builds or they're actively playing the game, but I like to give a little update and try and be as informative about what I'm doing and why as I possibly can. So everybody that's probably looked at this may or may not have noticed that I started as a Bleed Gladiator character. How did that play out? It was ridiculously good. Little to no investment. I managed to get all the way and do my pinnacle bosses. Fantastic. I believe I was, the lucky block chance was so good. I was doing Exarch with 55% fire res and about 3.5 to 4k HP. That's a thing. That's a thing that happened. Ida was literally free. The damage was ridiculously high. I think my weapon of choice at the end was a Jack the Axe, and I was using its buff to help me deal even more damage. The single target damage was definitely there for the lack of investment at all, which was fantastic. All the way to tier 16s, and that was the first time I started running into any problems, right? Towards tier 16s, I started to feel the unlucky block chance that you get prior to blocking, because everyone knows the Ascendancy gives, if you have blocked recently, your chance to block is lucky. Well, that recently part is important, because if you get hit and you don't block the initial attack, then your block chance isn't lucky, so you kind of get pooped on. And when I started to do juiced T16 maps, I kind of started to notice this. Which, when that happens, it prompts you to want to upgrade your character's gear, right? So you start farming up some currency, trying to expand your gear, and I ran into a problem. I ran into the everything is becoming far more expensive than I can possibly keep up with problem. And this is mostly my fault. For the first 3 days of the league, I think I only got to play about 4 hours. So I missed all of the early investments. My only investment I did make was I managed to get last rate of hemorrhaging for about 5C, and then it went up to like a divine plus for a little while. That was basically it. Rislatha's coil completely ran away from me. I was close to it when it was like 1 or 2 divines, and then it blew up to like 10. So I started to find upgrading my character was incredibly difficult, because the amount of people that are playing melee and the amount of currency that starts flowing by the people that were playing the game more than me started to push all of that stuff out of my reach, which is a real pain. But even with that, like I said, I got my pinnacle bosses done. I hit tier 16. I got all of the map completions done. That was fine. Everything's fine. And then I decided to change my League Starter on about my day 3, probably, was it my day 2 or 3? Because it didn't take me long once I actually get playing to progress all that stuff. I decided to change to a Chieftain, and an RF Chieftain at that. And the reason I did that is because it was a hard decision to make, because I wanted to make Bleed good. I wanted to take Bleed forward. But as I started upgrading my gear, I started to realize that I needed chaos resistance, I needed regular resistance, I needed a little bit of dexterity, I needed spell suppression, and I needed life on all of my equipment pieces. Well, minus the dex. I didn't need dex that much. But that's 4 modifiers that kind of had to be on my pieces of gear to take me to the next steps. And I was having a bit of an issue with that. I probably could have done without the spell suppress now that I'm thinking about it, but it's still a bit of a pain, really, to get all of that on. And the way I like to craft is I like to, well, especially when I have currency, I like to craft the suffixes of an item and then work on the prefixes of an item. because I find that prefixes generally tend to be much easier to get. So, you know, I'll get my resistances set, I'll get my spell suppression set, and then I'll either use suffixes can't be changed, or I'll use a chaos, Eldritch Chaos Orb to just kind of flip the prefixes until I get what I want. And obviously, we're not that rich. In fact, we're far from rich because, again, I missed the investment stage, so I couldn't use my early game chaos to get stuff that could really expand in value. So crafting that way wasn't really an option, and the only other way to kind of do it is to get like a fracture and then craft and get, you know, so try and get what I want. But obviously, melee being as popular as it is, everything that is being used, especially the new hybrid bases, are incredibly expensive. Could I have gone for the cheaper versions? Yes. Would my like ADHD or whatever allow me to do this? Absolutely not. And then I was fighting constantly against myself, like, this isn't going to work. I don't want to waste my currency on something that isn't going to be used at the end. And I was kind of having an internal struggle while I was trying to make this character better. And ultimately, I just decided I was going to play the Chieftain. Now, why a Chieftain? Ignoring the fact that I went RF, and it's really good for the League mechanic, ignoring that, why Chieftain? 90% all res, really easily. 75% block, still available. Huge life recovery because of the side of the tree that we're on. And we only need access to fire resistance to cap all of our elemental resistances, making things incredibly, incredibly easy. So I was looking at what to go with, and I was like, well, I'm still in the league start phase. I'm only on like my day 3. The longer I leave it, the worse it's going to be. So I'm just going to swap my league starter right now, and I'm going to go straight for a Chieftain, because Chieftains seem to me to be the most start-friendly Ascendancy completely available. Like, if you see the Ascendancy over here, all of the stuff's got fire and life regeneration, modifiers to fire resistance applied to cold, lightning resistance at 50% of value. This means if I overcap my fire, everything else gets capped with me. Valico Storm's Embrace, modifiers to maximum fire resistance, also applied to maximum cold and lightning resistance. This is allowing you to get elemental capped at 90% with full resistances at a fraction of the investment. So this is just like free defensive layers, just completely out the wazoo. And then after that, you've got the Hinocorus Death Fury, which just makes mapping a complete breeze, regardless of what character you're on. Those explosions are really good. And that's basically, you know, that was my reasoning behind it. Now, this is even before I went RF. I decided to go RF after I had gained a bit more knowledge of the league and how gold hungry it was. And again, obviously, as the league progressed, you get to see how everything becomes really, really expensive for melee because everybody is playing melee. I was tempted to go as a Chieftain Slam character and maybe, you know, keep it bleed, but in the end, I was just like, no, that stuff's all too expensive. I need to dial back my expectations because I went into my bleed character expecting that I'll be playing for day 1. I wasn't, and then I suffered for it, right? I couldn't get the things I need. I didn't have the currency I needed. So I needed to dial it back all the way to something that could get the job done without being incredibly expensive. So, and that's why I went with Chieftain. And, you know, it's just incredibly, like, good. Now, as you can see, my weapon for my Chieftain is the same weapon that I picked up at the start of the game. I literally walked out of the beach after beating up old buddy at the start of the game, and this was in my vendor, +1 to all spell fire gems. So I was like, it's destiny. Bought it, and I'm still using it now at level 92. Why? Because you don't need anything better. That's how beginner friendly this is, right? I crafted my own taming. I don't need it. And my most expensive item is probably my Cloak of Flame. And everything else is just kind of... I've been able to work up to buy this because the Chieftain has provided me so much as a standard that it allowed me to just kind of cruise through the game and get to what I have now. And I also found out getting the T1 fractures for this stuff, even though I only really have one, is much easier, or at least at the time when I was doing it, it was much cheaper for non-hybrid armor bases. And by that I mean, like, this armor, it cost me like a 80 chaos, maybe less, for this base. And then the hybrid version, the armor and evasion version, was like divines. And that's because, you know, that's what you would use on the Gladiator. That's what a Slayer would use. That's what people that are like min-maxing their stuff would use. And Chieftain doesn't need that, especially with the intention of using the Cloak of Flame, right? So I could knowledgeably get my hands on these Leviathan gauntlets and not feel bad for investing into them, because you know, I'm going to be using it till the end as something I'm going to keep all the time. So that's why I ended up going with Chieftain, honestly. And the RF was just an option of, you know, I need gold badly. I need something that's going to map really easily. And last league, a little bit of backup information, I ended up going DD, and it absolutely killed my hands. So I refuse to do that again. I feel like slamming and pianoing my my shouts and stuff is just going to kill my hands again. So I was like, you know, I'm not going to go I'm not going to go slams. I'm going to just go RF, and I'm going to make it easy, because as I pointed out, my goal of this league is to make a bow warden character, and that's basically what we're after. It's a shame that my bleed league starter didn't really work out for me. I found like a bunch of issues with it. Some that I feel like was a bug. Like I had 100% chance to inflict bleed, and I was, you know, I'd hit stuff with like the first swing or second swing of lacerate, and it wouldn't bleed, which was weird. But, you know, that's besides the point. I decided to go for this because it's just incredibly cheap. Chieftain gives you everything you need to get started. It makes the gearing process incredibly easy. Righteous Fire makes the mapping process really easy. The single target damage is trash, but I had the luxury of actually doing all my pinnacle bosses on my bleed character because, you know, like I said, it wasn't bad. It was just incredibly hard to take forward at the part of the game that I'm in at the moment. So, you know, that's where we're at the moment. And, you know, with very little kind of investment, because stuff's so easy to craft. I'll show you again. These jewels, 8% fire damage over time, increased maximum life, and fire damage. If I wanted the physical version of this, I'd be paying divines. But the percent chance for percent fire damage over time multiplier, those are like 40 chaos. You can get a fractured one of those for like 40 chaos. Roll fire until you get like a life modifier on top, and you end up with stuff like that. Like, so 8% fire damage to time over time multiplier, 6% increased maximum life, and 19% burning damage. Like, it's just so cheap. It's so incredibly cheap because everyone's playing melee. So it was just obvious, like, you know, this is the way to go. Again, 8%, 5% life, 15% fire damage. These are good high value jewels, and they're compared to the physical alternatives, which I would be using on my bleed character, they're free. They're practically free by comparison. So if you are in the same situation that I was in, I have to suggest, if you need a reroll, even if it's to another melee character, even if you want to go slams, go Chieftain. Chieftain it's just so intro friendly. I've never had it this easy. I have never had it this easy on an introduction, like, first character. I was kind of dreading it, or I tend to dread re-rolling because, you know, getting all of the stuff for it, especially if it's really like in flavor, it's just incredibly expensive, right? But this was basically free. So, you know, if you're in the same situation, give it a thought, because it really helped me, and I'm blasting tier 16 juiced maps out the wazoo now, and I'm still progressing. So it'll only be a matter of a week or maybe 2 weeks until I have everything on this built completely, and I'll have the gear coming in and the resources coming in to make my warden bow character. And that's what I'm really looking forward to. The next update video, it might not be an update video, it might actually be a build guide / design for this warden character that I want to make. So if you're interested in that, keep an eye out. And hopefully you found this informative, maybe helpful, or it sated your curiosity if you're wondering what I'm doing and how I managed with my bleed. It's a shame we're not bleed still, but this is just far, far easier and cheaper, and that's what you want from a League starter, unfortunately. And that's what this is. So, yep. If you enjoyed, hopefully I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.